Hey everyone, and welcome to the GRC Room for 5 questions. I'm Mike Andrews here once again with Karina Clever, and we're happy to welcome guest Nick Ryan, who has held CIO and CISO roles at companies valued up to $4 billion. How are you doing today, Nick?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, guys. Excited to talk about GRC.
Yeah, this will be awesome. So let's get right into it. Let me pass it to Karina for a brief intro and the first question.
Hi, I'm Karina Clever, founder of Clever Compliance. We are a tool agnostic compliance management as a service provider. So Nick, thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy to have you. First question is, which part of cyber GRC do you believe that businesses struggle with the most?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think for me, what I've seen, especially at larger and larger organizations, is the difference between policy and what I would call real life, right? And a lot of different business units are either fully unaware of what they need to be doing for compliance reasons or what controls are operating or not operating. And so, there's a lot of times where we've looked at policies and somebody will say, well, that's not what we do, and you kind of have to start unwinding from there.
That's a really, really great point. And this is where the checkbox compliance becomes a monster, because you're looking at that list of 12,000 controls that are ethereally written that have nothing to do with you. You go publish a document to satisfy the auditor. Meanwhile, your actual people doing the work, right, are lost because they haven't been given the instructions they need to be successful at their positions and what the expectations for their organizations are. So this is where it's so important to connect those ethereal controls to your real true operations, and then have those real true controls be reflective in that. Fantastic point. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, that is big. My daily post yesterday on LinkedIn was titled, "If a cybersecurity policy isn't followed, is it even worth having?" And you hit that mark perfectly. So the next one, Nick, we've been hearing so many data breaches. It seems like every week, every month. What's one data breach that stood out to you the most, and why that one?
Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit more personal, and it was the first one that I actually worked with the FBI on, and it was memorable for a lot of reasons. But this was probably 2019, early 2020, right before COVID, and it was our accounting firm, and we had a breach from our document repository. So all of our documents were there, and basically it came down to, we had poor access controls. We did not have multi-factor authentication. From a GRC perspective, we were telling clients that we were relying on the platform security, right? So whether it was, AWS or, no, I know it's hard to admit, okay, but this is a moment of honesty. But yeah, we were just relying on everybody else, right? And the firm didn't want to make the investments at that time. And after we had that incident, it kind of scared everybody straight, so to speak. And we all said, okay, whatever it's going to take, let's actually, put the controls in place to how they should be and avoid this. I'll never forget the managing partner, the CEO, saying to me, whatever it costs and whatever we have to do to make sure we never go through that again, it's done, right? And so that was kind of the first, okay, great. We're never going to go through that again, hopefully.
So a basic control, access control, right? So of course, and we're seeing a lot of this relinquishment. We'll do vendor assessments for our clients, and the vendors will go send someone else a SOC 2. I'm not asking for their SOC 2, I'm asking for yours. And if you don't have it, answer some of these compensating control questions, right? Because what do SOC 2s do? They exclude subservice organizations. So if I send you my data and you send it downstream elsewhere to one of your organizations, I never know about it, and I have no contractual liability or foresight into where it actually goes. So pretty common and avoidable, right? And it's just, you put your trust into these whiz-bang tools, and you got to look under the covers to really figure out where the liabilities there are. Mike, anything to add to that one?
Yeah, it just goes to show that a practitioner like Nick can know the right things that needs to be done. But all we can do a lot of times is propose it to the business leaders. Sure. And if they say no, they say no. And certain things can happen, as we see. It's not just as quick as, oh, the cybersecurity guy wants to implement this stuff, let's go do it. And, it's all risk management.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, realistically too, I mean, I think a lot of times, you've heard the saying again that, compliance is not security, right? And I know it's again and again, people say that, but it is so true because a lot of times you'll have, the business leaders will, for all the wrong reasons in security practitioners' mind, but in the right reasons of their own mind of, hey, I don't really need to care about this unless there's something riding on it, right? Like a certification report, an attestation, or whatever it might be. So they just sometimes need help connecting those dots of like, no, this is why this is really important. Now, thankfully, in my scenario, it was, more of a stubbing of the toe by the end of it. Initially, when of course the lawyers come around, they're like, oh, this is going to be $50 million, and scaring everybody to death. And it ended up being like less than maybe $150,000 after it was all said and done. Which is still a lot of money, but compared to 50 million. But yeah, that kind of woke everybody up to say, oh wow, okay, this is not just because of this, we want to we need to be doing this.
And the other thing I think I want to add is a lot of people are relying on cyber insurance policies, which may not come through all of the time. And so that's something to just be cognizant of. Just because you have a cyber insurance policy doesn't mean that you forego writing the basic and implementing basic controls inside your organization. So, all right, next question, Nick. What is the most impactful GRC related advice that you ever received?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best advice and what I've done historically is always take the high water mark and make that the standard, right? And that's just kind of made things a lot easier instead of trying to just make exceptions, because we all know that there's no such thing, as, all the time. I always joke that every answer in an organization is a soft no, right? Because if somebody has enough cash and enough money and enough will, they're going to make it happen, right? You're going to bend, you're going to make the exception. So if you have the high water mark of here's where we are, it's going to make all your compliance and GRC tasks much easier to manage than, okay, well, the ISO 27001 wants this. Okay, but, the SOC 2 over here wants this, right? And, oh, wait, we have the high trust for our healthcare data. And that's, so you get all over the place and it becomes a nightmare to manage. And then the other one, which I have to say, is automate the questionnaires and surveys as much as you can, because that is a time killer for teams. Of course you guys know, but the art of sitting down and, going through, it's not really an art, it's just more, smashing your head against the keyboard, right? Of going through answers again and again and again, like being able to automate that saves everybody a lot of headache and time. So.
Saves everybody time. And then I also, as part of your vendor management program, always recommend have 4 tiers to your vendors. Don't send everyone the same questionnaire blindly 100%. With the 15 million questions on it, right? The vendor that has the least impact to your critical business operations and your critical business, which again requires data classification, right? You have to classify your data and know where your most important golden nuggets are. And most people don't want to go there because they've got the sales guy on their cloud provider saying to them, you have to encrypt publicly available data. And companies go spend money on this. Like, why would you do this, right? Anyway, that's my vent. Sorry, go ahead, Mike, you're up.
Yeah, no, that's a big one. That's a big one. Those questionnaires can be really time consuming for a lot of companies. That's like the main thing they care about with cybersecurity, because they need to close deals. That's why businesses exist. So with that one, to build on the best advice you had, what is something that you do differently to excel in this field?
Yeah, I mean, from a GRC perspective, I think it's really about strategically communicating the value of these. So all it takes usually is one sizable deal being kicked away from the table, your organization losing out on the deal because you did not have a SOC 2 Type 2 report, or you didn't have an ISO 27001 certification, or they weren't going to just send you their laptops to do the work on, right? It takes one of those that's pretty sizable for the organization to say, oh wow, okay, we're actually losing dollars on this. So I think is what I've learned is, how do we position this in a way that the business says we're going to turn down the friction, so our teams can, go and do things that they need to do. More importantly than that, we're going to get invited to the table that, requires people to have X, Y, and Z. And I think too, a big one that, with the CMMC, with the Department of War, that It's right here, front center. You're seeing that a lot, right? Where companies are kind of scrambling, and it's the ones that already have things, somewhat going or have, an actual certification. They're the ones that are getting ahead, right? So it's all about how do you frame this in a way that the business leaders will say, oh, okay, this is actually not just something that the annoying security folks want to do. And, they actually want to help us get more business and make money, and seeing you as a business enabler and not just a roadblock or a cost center. That's the major one.
Yeah, CMMC is probably the beefiest example of when companies need to do cybersecurity to close business, along with that FedRAMP. FedRAMP's actually a little bit more work, but less companies are going to go through FedRAMP. Right. And there's still thousands of companies that have existing DoD contracts that don't even know they need to go through CMMC. So it's shocking, and it's very expensive. It's going to be really hard for some of the smaller, less technical companies to be compliant. But that's a great approach, Nick. What do you think, Karina?
Well, I'm remembering two things right now. So we're doing an assessment against for a company that has to be CMMC and FedRAMP requirement. We're finding many of the controls. Of course, look, they're all born of NIST 800 to 171. They're overlapping, right? So you're meeting one control, you're satisfying both frameworks. That's the first thing. The second thing, I think, Mike, I'm hearing your voice in my ear where you were explaining to me how great it is to isolate the CUI specifically and focus the controls on the area that contains CUI and the technology and figure out how to do that isolation. And that's such a smart way to approach CMMC for a lot of companies, right? And if you can accomplish that, again, we need data classification. We have to discover where our CUI is, right? And then if you can put up that structure around there, and this is your concept that I always remember, a great teaching opportunity there for me, from you, then that might get you a little bit further ahead on the CMMC piece.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, just one last comment on that. That is such a great point. In large organizations, just with RSM, 20,000 something people, that's how you go about everything when it comes to a compliance perspective. Yeah. Is, it's so much easier. Instead of boiling the ocean, let's create a net new, evergreen field, and we're just going to make an environment, especially today with virtualization. That's the way to go. And then that way too, you're not asking people to follow. You're saying, no. You're telling them in this environment, this is how it goes, right? So you get a lot more, willing compliance, people smiling because they understand the rules and they want to follow them out of the goodness of their hearts.
Well, I mean, translating it into normal human language is 100%. Important too, right? Yeah. So, all right, we're at the last question. Drum roll, folks. So, what is the one thing that businesses can do today to strengthen their GRC program? What do you think?
Oh, that's such a great question. I think the best thing is to have actual owners within each control and not necessarily tied to one specific person. Because obviously, especially bigger companies or even smaller, when people leave, you get into kind of a fray of who owns this control and who's going to attest to it and do the testing and evidence collection, things like that. So I think really that's probably under the big bubble of, trying to automate it as much as you can, get it out of spreadsheets. Even, some of the large organizations that I was a part of, we were doing things in spreadsheets, right? And it's just really hard to manage it when you have that much going on. So I think
this is why, we're tool agnostic, is because people go down these paths of all of these software and they come back to spreadsheets in the end. It's one of the most controllable areas. I mean, it's kind of sad, but it's true, right? Unless you have something that you control a little bit better internally. That's all I have. Thank you so much for joining us, Mike.
Yep. No, thanks so much for joining us, Nick. Other than LinkedIn, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, that's the main place right now, unless you're in sunny Southern California, San Diego, definitely in the area. And of course, show you where all the Mexican taco stands are that are amazing. So yeah, thanks for having me, guys. This is awesome.